For those of you still with us, we're still walking through the songs by Casting Crown, the album live song. I'm still walking through it, and the song that I'm working on right now is called Set Me Free, I think is what it's called, and you can find the words to it in the link down below. If you go to our, if you're on the YouTube channel, not watching it on Facebook, you should be able to go down into the comment section, and there you'll see a bunch of information on. Should also be a link to the words, so you can read through the words. We have it in the bulletins here, but you can also read it there. So it's an interesting type. It's going to be another kind of, I'll say, a deep topic. I won't say heavy. Heavy has its negative connotations a little bit, but it's going to be a deep topic a little bit. It's going to be an interesting song a little bit to walk through as well. And so I wanted to begin with sharing with you a dream that I had last night. We sometimes have dreams, and then we sometimes don't remember them. I'm always asking my son, did you dream last night? And he goes, nope. But scientists tell us we dream all the time. Sometimes we just don't remember it. And dreams nobody really knows why dreams occur. Some researchers think it's our way of decompressing for the day events. Some of it's our way of working through our anxieties. How the mind works, who knows? I ain't figured out how my mind works as well. And so, neither has the church, apparently. So, dreams. Sometimes, though, I believe dreams can be prophetic in our lives. They can kind of speak to us on what's deep in our conscience, both good and bad, just what's sitting on us, what's weighing us down. And they can help us in their nonsensical ways to process our thoughts and feelings. See, the truth in these dreams may not always be in the literal interpretation of them, but we could find maybe some truth in them in a parable type way, in a way in looking at what is the meaning of everything, and the fact of the representation that they show us. The fact found within the representation. And so I had a dream last night that reminded me that I'm still pretty vivid of. I woke up this morning and was still pretty vivid of it, and only a portion of it. This is going to be, I think it's a little prophetic about myself. It's not going to be as famous or as powerful as the other I Have a Dream speech. I thought about saying that. I don't think this one is going down in history, though. I don't really believe that. If y'all want to keep it, that's fine, but there's much better I Have a Dream speeches out there. But here it is. In my dream, me and my family had moved to a new residence. Now, I don't know where it was. As you know, dreams don't make any sense anyways. And so we were at some kind of apartment residence that we were moving to for whatever reason or another. And it had stairwells going up and down. And I was by myself. And I think for a portion of the dream, which I don't really remember so much, it was me and my wife in this new home. And then there was a portion of it that I remember more vividly by myself in this stairwell. You see, the stairwell, though, was kind of stark. It was very bland. It reminded me a lot, and I was trying to write my notes, and I didn't know quite how to say it, but it kind of reminded me of like a football stadium. Everything's just concrete, and then they've got the pillars, as you're driving in the carports, I guess, or the garages. You got those concrete pillars that hang down a little bit, and then it was concrete steps, so I don't know what kind of apartment complex I was moving into, but that's how it was. And there was two different ones that I saw. Two different stairwells, And so I looked at one, and I had to go up the stairwells, I think, or I don't remember if I was going up or down, but I had to go up the stairwells, and there was one. It was normal. It was about 8 feet tall between the walkway, the steps, and the concrete ceiling with the pillars. And so I looked at it and decided, okay, well, I'll go to the other one because for some reason I guess that was closer for me to go down. And so I went to it. But the problem with that stairwell was this in my dream was that there was about this much space between the stairwell, the stairs, and the ceiling. And so there was concrete pillars hanging down, and they were much more closer together. And I think these stairwells actually went down, so it made a little bit more sense in my dream. Again, nonsensical dreams. The meaning isn't in the exactness of it, but it may be in the parableness of it. And so for some reason, I decided that that's the way I should go. And so it was just wide enough for you to lay down and squeeze down it. Now, I've got a little bit of claustrophobia that I discovered one day when I was stuck in a tight space. But I also discovered how I can get myself through it, the anxieties of being claustrophobic. I know how I operate and my mind operates, even though it makes no sense. I know how it works, and I know how to keep my anxieties at bay. And so in my dream, it made sense. Okay, I can do this. And so as I slid down the first step just right. And then I go, well, that's not so bad. It was easily went. And I slid down the second step. And I got to the second step, and I looked up as you're laying down, and you see the crevice. And so I decided at that moment that probably wasn't the way to go. See, I slid down quite easily, though, and then I looked up and I said, well, okay. But there's something changed to me, and I remember feeling that this wasn't a right path. That I'd rather go back and either get to the top and reassess my situation or go around to the other steps that looked way more inviting and at least provided some more breathing room for me. And so as I rotated my body in my dream and tried to scoot back up the steps, I couldn't fit anymore. I couldn't fit up the same steps that I slid down. In my dream, I couldn't do it. And so I got stuck. And I remember feeling a little helpless at the time. See, I didn't want to go back down. Something didn't feel right going down. I wanted to change my mind. I knew it was easy going down, but something didn't feel right about sliding down. But all of a sudden, I tried to scoot back up, and I just kept getting stuck. And so I sat there in limbo. And those of you who have anxiety and claustrophobia, the worst thing you can feel is the ability not to move. And so in my dream, I know this because I'd been, again, confined. And I knew that if I shrunk myself so tiny that I could trick myself into moving, then I felt fine. It was when I pushed out against the walls that I was in that I felt anxious about it. And so I felt, well, if I went back up and got stuck, then that would limit my movement and my anxiousness would kick in. In my dream, this made perfect sense. Like sliding down stairs with 2 feet, or 1 foot, really. And so I stopped. I didn't want to continue. I couldn't go back. And I was stuck in limbo, frozen in place, alone, and in some way indecisive. And then I woke up. And it sat with me this morning. I woke up about 5:36 this morning, and I sat in my chair. I have a reading chair in our living room, and I sat there in silence in the dark with my coffee and thought about it. Why was I dreaming that? I don't know. And so as we move through this song, I want to start out reading some of these words to you. See, this song is very interesting. See, the opening lines go like this. It hasn't always been this way. I remember brighter days before the dark ones came and stole my mind, wrapped my soul in chains. Now I live among the dead, fighting voices in my head, hoping someone hears my cry in the night and carries me away. See, this particular song has very strong connotations about possession. Kind of a demonic possession, a spiritual possession. And the song is written from the points of view of that person experiencing this chaining up of their life, a chaining up of their soul, an inability to control themselves, or a feeling of lack of control in themselves. A lot of us have been feeling this lately, have we not, at home? The government telling us stay home, we can't go anywhere. There's a lack of control. As a matter of fact, there's been a lot of news recently. There's been certain video games that have come out that focus on world building. I just bought my son this game yesterday for his last. It's called Animal Crossing, and you have this little avatar, and he sits on this island. You can build this island up, and you have complete control over it. Complete. Matter of fact, this morning my son was playing and showing me, and he's got fish tanks in his little tent he built on his little island. And he's got bugs, and he's built his tiki torch. But researchers have said this stuff is booming right now. A sense of virtual control in our lives. And see, going back to the song, although this song carries a strong connotation of possession, of being spiritually possessed by demons, similar to the story of the possessed man that we find in Mark and Luke. Matter of fact, the song and the story kind of parallel, and I think that was kind of their what's the word I'm thinking of? Their inspiration for it. We can also apply this message to other kinds of possession, of other types of helplessness, of loneliness, and in other ways of being lost in our lives, of people feeling lonely. Brothers and sisters, the reality is this. We are in a lost world. See, among people who feel lost and not in control, and at times we feel lost ourselves, do we not? Loss of control. Chained up by the demons that possess some of us, whatever they may be. And the sadness is that in this disconnection, see, they're disconnected from society. I touched on it in the last one. PTS, people who suffer traumatic disorders, feel disconnected. Soldiers who come home don't feel like they can reintegrate into society. Doctors who are on the front line saving people now see death daily, and they feel disconnected. They don't know how to go home. They don't know how to express this to people. And so in this disconnection, going to the story in the Bible, the possessed man was isolated and alone. He was separated from society, held in chains by the very people who were his neighbors. He wasn't even allowed in the city. This is it, my friends, for some of them, for people who suffer from depression, again, from PTSD, also from decisions in their lives that weigh them down in the past. Thinking, how can I ever get past this? Placing chains on their souls and on their heart. And they don't know how to go further, how to carry on. You see, to go back to the former is impossible to them. They can't fit into who they were previously, before they were chained up or they felt chained up. They get stuck. And in that getting stuck, they're afraid that in that transition, they will never be able to escape from it. Now, I want to kind of do a quick aside. I'm saying these things, but it's not true for everybody. Depression and PTSD, alcoholism, any kind of thing that weighs us down is various in the ways that it affects each individual. I'm just talking blanket-wise. But to go forward in their lives, they know is not right. They just don't feel like that's the way they should be going. And so they're stuck. They're stuck where they are, not knowing or not deciding, wondering if somebody is ever going to come by to even ask if anybody is where they're at. But it just doesn't feel right, even if it was easy to continue on. And so they sit confused and isolated. And says sadness slowly envelops their life. And so they wait. And they wait. And they survive in the next day. They survive to the next hour. They sit to survive the next minute and then the next second. See, the song goes on saying, morning breaks another day. Finds me crying in the rain. All alone with my demons I am. So you go into John 8:30-36, there, the scripture that was read, or the gospel message that was read, Jesus is talking to a crowd of people who are willing to listen. And this passage is very clearly talking about sin. And more directly, Jesus is talking to his Israelites, to the Israelites, about their sins and the sins of the nation. The sin of turning from God and seeking comfort from the world. But also, see, there's a separate side of that. He's addressing the actions of a society seeking answers apart from God. Seeking comfort from their anxieties and their pains and their confusion and isolation. Seeking refuge from these demons in their life and in the world and not looking towards God. See, he's approaching a particular society, a particular group of people, his people. But see, what we know, reading the scriptures, is this. Jesus comes to them knowing their pain. See, what's different about Christianity is that we have a God who has felt our pain and our suffering, who has walked among us, who took time out in a proverbial sort of way, time out to come and be with us, knowing our pains and feeling our temptations. Excuse me. I think I'm going to use your water for once. We have a God who starts out, Jesus in the desert place, being tempted and walking through it. But he gives them the truth. The truth that they are children of God, that they are welcome in his kingdom, that in truth they are never isolated from God and never really truly alone. It feels like that in the world sometimes. And he gives them this truth. You see, the magic is he doesn't just give it to them in words, not in just quoting Scripture, not in just telling them the truth, but in doing the truth, in healing, in casting out demons, in calling them by their name, and in being among them, and in inviting them into his table. He sets them free by showing them God's true nature. See, Hebrews chapter 1, verse 3 says, the Son is the reflection of God's glory and the exact expression of his nature. See, most translations use the word, instead of reflection, they say the Son is the radiance of God's glory. But if you look at the Greek word, it also can mean reflection, and I like that word better. I was discussing this. Actually, we drove into Austin to get my wife's car from the Volvo dealership there, and I got into this, and I was reading Hebrews. I've been reading through Hebrews, and I got to that, and I go, radiance, that's okay. And then I looked at the Greek, and it said reflection. I like that word reflection. When they look upon God, when they look upon Jesus, they look upon God. When they see Jesus heal, they see God healing. When they see Jesus casting demons out, or people who have been tied and chained down, they see God freeing people. And in being with them and living among them, Jesus gives them the opportunity of freedom from sin, from isolation, and from the demons that are weighing them down. The demons that only allow them to see hopelessness. See, the demons only allow them to see this hopelessness and to give them temporary relief. The demons that enslave them, sin that enslaves us to the world, telling them to go back to the world for more relief. But it's a temporary relief. But Jesus, in reflecting God as himself, showing his nature of love and mercy, his kingdom everlasting, showed them the new way. A new way. Not a way of just laws, of reading scriptures, but a way of love, of grace, of mercy. A way that says, I know you. I know your name. I called you to me. You sit at my table with me. I want you in communion with me to share in the glory that is the kingdom everlasting. And so the words of the song go on. Who is this man that comes my way? The dark ones shriek. They scream his name. Is this the one they say will set the captives free? Jesus, rescue me. Now I want to go back real fast because this could be misconstrued. I want to clear up a moment that might be misunderstood. Jesus is not only just talking about individual sins on someone. You're being bad. You shouldn't think that way. You shouldn't go home with that person. You shouldn't drink that much. He's not talking also about this. Only about this. What he's talking is a societal sin, a sin of the community, a sin of the Israelites of seeking elsewhere. As a society, a sin which has taken hold of all the Israelites, regardless of their individual actions. A sin which wasn't even perceived by some, but that had engulfed the society nonetheless. The kind of sin that can blind us to His very presence and in our lives because we aren't even aware of it. The sins of the Father, so to speak. We just fall into it. We don't know any better. Society can embrace a way of life for such a long time that it seems normal, but can be destructive. And so this sin is not caused directly by the individual, but is perpetuated by society that the individual lives within. And Jesus comes to His people with this in mind and makes this point to them. That what they cling to is not God in that moment. But He says to cling to Him. See, they said, we're sons of Abraham. We are free. We're sons of Abraham. He says, be sons of God. For it is the Son who inherits the kingdom. He allows them to see that who they cling to as children of Abraham will not truly bring them freedom because Abraham is just like them. He holds an important part of life for the Jewish people. But Jesus is the life. And so He says, cling to that truth. And so the point to this quick aside can also be this, or is also this. Because an individual, a person, a child of God suffers, it may not be because of their individual sin. There's too many people we think about that in society. Well, if you have more faith, you'd be all right. That's not true. Maybe because it's society we live within, who might perpetuate this depression, this seeking out for other forms to comfort us. The community then in itself is lost and they reside within it. Sin is referenced a lot as a disease. We don't talk about it a lot because we don't like the word. And it's referenced like a disease because maybe the transmission of it is not always because of the deliberate act of the individual. It just happened to be in the system. The freedom. And as the song goes, it says, as the God-man passes by, He looks straight through my eyes, and darkness cannot hide. Brothers and sisters, if this is you, suffering in the world, lost, isolated, lonely, and anxious, you're not alone. Both here on this earth, and you are not alone in the heaven spiritually. There are others who feel the same way. And the truth is, the Creator is never away from us. He is with us always. Jesus, who made you, also loves you. Jesus has suffered and was tempted. He walked among the broken and among the hurting, people feeling lost and alone, and sees straight into you. He knows you because He felt the same. but He drives out the darkness. So accept. He says, accept me into your life. He knows your pain. He knows to move back from where you are is harder than moving forward at times. And He knows that you feel stuck where you are. And so He comes to you. He knew society. God knew society. The earth was stuck where it was. And so He came to us, suffered, walked with us, so that we may find freedom in Him. He knows going forward is hard. But He comes to you, walks to you, and says, as the words in the song say, do you want to be free? Lift your chains. I hold the key. All power on heaven and earth belong to me. See, that's Ephesian articles is what that's about. That's why I picked that, Ephesians. It talks about all things are placed underneath Christ. All things are underneath Christ. God has glorified Christ and risen Him up so that all things may be subject to His rule. That includes the demons that possess you. And the sin can be wiped away because Jesus says so. And you find new life in the King of the kingdom everlasting. And if it is not you, brothers and sisters, there's a duty to live, to be with, to love, to grant mercy and grace to those who are suffering. You see, when you give yourself to Christ, when you take the baptism, when you come to Christ and lay yourself at His feet, and you place yourself before the throne, you clothe yourself in Him. And you take part in His mercy and love. You take part in His suffering. You take part in reflecting God and expressing God's true nature to others. We're not perfect. We will fail at this sometimes, but our duty is to pick ourselves back up, knowing the truth, and retrying and doing it. You see, there are those right this very minute who are contemplating another drink, another dose, contemplating choosing violence over peace, anger over grace, another night on the streets, and contemplating an end to their very story. This is the darkness of the world that we live in for some people. And you might be the one who comes to that person and asks, do you want to be free? Do you want to be free? Because we walk clothed in Christ. And so, brothers and sisters, if you find yourself in that situation, take them by the hand, walk with them, provide for them connection to a life that they are truly seeking. A path. Put them back on the path they truly want to walk down. And brothers and sisters, do not lead them to a church, but lead them to the church, to God, to Jesus. Don't get caught up in the non-denominational, the denominational, the Methodists, the Presbyterians, the Catholics, the Baptists, wherever your preference may be. Don't allow yourself to be children stuck to Abraham. Those are good. There was nothing wrong with Abraham, and there's nothing wrong with a tradition you choose. But God says, be children of me. Guide them to God, to the cross, where true freedom is found. Lead them and let them fall on their knees with you beside them on your knees. And hear the proclamation. Hear Jesus proclaim to your soul, you are free. You are free. And hear yourself say, Jesus, set us free. You see, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. That's scriptural. We know that. Jesus is a new life. Leads us to a new life in a new way. but not a new truth, but a rediscovered truth, one that has always been throughout the earth, all the universe. God is everlasting, so the truth has never changed. And that God is here to heal and to call us and to free us from the blind truth of the world. Amen?